Hello, everyone. It's Elisha here from Ownr. And as you can see, I'm joined by a guest today. Before we dive in, welcome to our weekly segment. Today, we're sharing the 4 things that you need to do after you register your business as a sole proprietorship. Since it's a simpler process and it's much easier to manage than a corporation, for many business owners, including myself, registering for a sole prop is actually the most popular option that most people choose before they incorporate. So today we're joined by Aziz from the Ownr team. Aziz, I'd love it if you were to actually just introduce yourself, tell us about who you are and what you get done at Ownr.
Thanks, Alicia. Hey everyone, my name is Aziz. I'm a senior account specialist here at Ownr. And essentially my job is to work with our entrepreneurs to help them understand all of the different nuances and processes of starting a business and getting going. And we work with so many different entrepreneurs, from sort of high growth tech companies who are looking to bring on investors and hiring employees and scale their business, all the way to that side hustler who's just kind of getting started and exploring business ideas and maybe looking to set up a sole proprietorship. All that being said, basically, my job is to just have fun all day by talking to entrepreneurs. So it's great.
I love it. Honestly, it's so rewarding working with entrepreneurs. I love it. I've worked for many of the different tech companies I've worked for have specifically focused on entrepreneurs and people who are building their own business and their side hustle. And it truly is very rewarding. I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. It's you get to talk to so many people from like so many different walks of life. I want to say almost like different parts of the country, because that's definitely what it is. But even
Yes.
globally, folks that are interested in immigrating to Canada and starting a business here and taking their skill set that they have from their home country and coming to Canada. So I just get to meet so many cool, talented individuals through this. So love my job. It's very, very fun.
Yes, amazing. I love it. So I really want us to kind of just like dive straight in, really, and kind of chat through around sole proprietorships. But before we do, and what you should do after you register, but before we do, can you actually define what is a sole prop? What is this type of registration? Can you dive into that for me?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really good idea. Before we jump in and start talking what's next,
Yeah.
let's take a step back and define what is currently in front of us, right? So,
Yes.
definitely. So, a sole proprietorship is probably the most common way to start a business. A sole proprietorship is really just a business that's made up of one business owner. That's you. And it hasn't been registered with the government as a corporation yet. There's no really legal separation between the business and the individual. So it makes getting started very, affordable and very easy. And for tax purposes, Alicia, sole proprietorship is probably the most basic way to run a business in Canada. It's probably the simplest way.
Yes.
So that's a very quick intro into sort of the concept, and we'll get more into it here.
Yes, exactly. Honestly, when I had first registered my business, it was as a sole prop, and it truly was very simple. I actually was an Ownr customer before I even started working here, and I remember when I went to go register my business as a sole prop, and then that was it. It literally was just entering my little creative name, and literally just drag, drop, clicked, done. I received the email. I was like, wait, that's it? Filed my taxes. I still worked with my personal accountant. So it all really is enmeshed entirely with you, which there are pros and cons to, and people can do their deeper research on that. We have a lot of information about that. But I really want us to dive into what you're supposed to do after you register for your sole prop. Hint, I didn't do everything. So this is advice to me, because I read through our little script and I was like, oh, I need to do some of these things. So I'd love to know, what would be the first step that a business owner should take after they register their sole proprietorship?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. Sorry, before getting into it, definitely there's like so many different things that like you're focusing on that aren't sort of like the basics of like what you're doing with the
Yes.
government. It's very easy to miss things. So
Yes.
definitely, So the first thing that we can focus on here is very thrilling and exciting, which is identifying your registration number.
Yeah.
Super fun stuff. But it's very important. The registration number is used for legal filings. It could be found on your registration document that's going to come from the government in which you're residing in. And which allows individuals to operate a business under sort of, like you said, a creative name that might not necessarily be their own legal name. So sole proprietors generally need their registration number to obtain a business number from Canada Revenue Agency, or the CRA. So it becomes very, very instrumental. It's almost like one of the first things that you're just going to gravitate towards, look at, because that's going to get you started on sort of this longer train of these other administrative tasks that you're going to run to make sure that you're set up correctly.
Awesome. Yes, definitely getting a registration number, which then leads into something you already mentioned already. So what would our next step be after getting your registration number?
Yeah. So one just kind of goes right into the other, right? Which is identifying your business number. So there are a couple of different factors as to how you obtain your business number, depending on the province that you live in. So the business number is assigned by the CRA, usually within 1 or 2 business days of the registration of the sole proprietorship. And it's used for tax purposes and opening different accounts with the CRA, right? So depending on Ownr, this looks a little bit different depending on which province you're registered in, right? So sole proprietorships can either obtain their business number on Ownr directly or from the CRA by just giving them a quick call and using sort of the information that you have in front of you, and they'll help work through it with you over the phone as well. And I believe we have a bit more information based on your specific province that's here in the chat.
Yes, that definitely makes sense. I'll be dropping a link into the chat with like different information as to what we're talking about today. But yes, I remember when I had to identify my business number, but I had to go in through and register, like check out my registration number, get in touch with the CRA. And there were just a few different steps. And I had to do that way after registering my business because there were some admin things I needed to figure out later on. So it really does make a difference for yourself if you take the time after you register to just kind of cross your T's, dot your I's, and ensure that you find first your registration number, then your business number. It'll make your life so much easier.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to understand like what and why, like what the actual thing is. Because you say like registration number. I mean, I have a registration number for like the YMCA. Business number, cool. That's like some sort of identifier, I'm guessing. Is that like, it can be confused between like a numbered company. Sometimes we've heard that, like major misconceptions or like, so it's important, I think, not only to understand like where to find it, but also what the actual thing is doing itself and what sort of running in the background as to why this
exactly
is sure.
Exactly, and the benefits you receive for sure. So that's extremely important, which we know. So after identifying both of these really important numbers, what could a business owner do next?
Yeah, so one thing that a lot of folks will do next, while not necessarily mandatory for a sole proprietorship, is opening up a business bank account. Right. So opening up a business bank account, unlike for a corporation where it's a legal requirement to have one, sole proprietorships do get the option to, but it's very, very recommended. And there's a couple different reasons for why you might want to consider opening up a bank account. So the first and foremost, I think that probably is going to speak to everyone's sort of like chaotic organization brain, is actually keeping your business and personal finances separate. Right. So you're going to save a lot of time and simplify your day-to-day management of your finances for your company. And if you're like me, every year comes around and I promise myself that I'm going to split things up and then I'm going to keep things organized. And I'm like, next year, and then the next year comes around. And you're like, why did you put everything in one basket all over again? So it's just going to save you that sort of that time and energy that it takes to kind of dig through everything. It's a good way to keep things split up. Really importantly, your accountant's not going to hate you. And if you're doing this stuff on your own, you're not going to hate you. So really, really important to keep those things separate. Another really cool feature of it is by opening up a business account early for the sole proprietorship, you actually start to build a credit profile for your business, which is going to make it easier to grow and scale that business later on. Obvious things like, it's easier to make and receive payments. It's just a bit more simple to work with clients and customers through that process. So getting that started is just going to make your life easier. And then the biggest thing for folks who are going through Ownr to register their business is they can actually qualify for a bit of a rebate. So not only is it getting the business account set up, making your life easier to that extent, but also getting some cash back from RBC for doing so. It's very smooth and simple. So it's a bit of a reward for being organized.
Right. I love that. Honestly, it truly is a no-brainer. If I had the chance to have done that before when I was registering, I would have taken that up, no question, because right now at Ownr, which is really cool, we actually dropped the price of the sole proprietorship. So it's now $49 to register your business. And you also could qualify to receive a rebate from RBC. So you're basically getting paid to register your business, to start your dream. That is like mind blown. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. And $49 is just, that's great. Like that's the lowest you're going to get. So That's
That
pretty
is an
cool. Pretty
incredible
cool. Again.
investment into yourself and your
Mhm.
business. And I think one of the also important points I want to hone in on that you had mentioned before was building your business credit. It is so important to have your business be identified outside of yourself. I know of different business owners who actually were able to even use their credit to validate their own personal credit and say, hey, I want to purchase a house. Hey, I want to purchase this thing. It really can help
Right.
advance your personal life and your business's life. If you want to be able to register to rent a space, if you want to be able to receive loans, it really does show that you have great business skills and that you can pay these loaning institutions back if you have great business credit. So that is just next level and is such an important step. Like I didn't split my accounts initially when I had registered my business, and eventually I did, and it made things so much easier. And it also ended up meaning that eventually I would qualify for a business credit card, and then I could also move all of the annoying payments that I couldn't pay for utilizing my debit card onto my business credit card. So it really just makes things a lot smoother. It keeps all your expenses in one place. So unlike me, you don't have to go into your personal email and find a million invoices.
Oh, God, the
It's
nightmare,
the
right?
worst. It's the worst.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that kind of goes to, like, I think the point around credit is a really good point, because it's within all of these things, any sort of institution or business partners, potentially, as you're going to maybe look and taking the next step of potentially incorporating or whatever it may be, it's always kind of good to have some sort of record of validity, right? I think that's what it all comes down to, is
Yes.
sort of showing more than just this like little skeleton of something that's existing. So yeah, you hit it right on the head there.
Yes, amazing. Well, before we even continue, I would love to encourage everyone who is watching this live stream, whether it's live or later on, to follow us here at Ownr, wherever you're watching. If you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, wherever you are, be sure to like or subscribe, leave a comment for us as we're going through this live. Aziz and I will be taking questions at the end of this session. We really want to encourage you as well to check out, as I mentioned before, the fact that we have lowered our sole prop price to $49 last year. And people who take advantage of that potentially have the chance to receive a rebate back from RBC if they register for their business bank account. So it really is exciting, and it really can assist people with, getting started with your journey. And I'm going to drop a link in the comments down below for you to check out during the stream or afterwards. But let's just dive straight back in. So I'd love to know, what is something that a business owner may need to do down the line after registering their business? So they've
Yeah.
already found their business number, found all the things, registered their business bank account. Like, what is the next thing that they would need to do?
Yeah, they're going now.
They're in
They
the
built their
flow.
customer base. They're in the flow. Yeah,
Yes.
they're doing the thing. They're doing
Yes.
the thing. They're living that life, the entrepreneur's life. Yeah. So we can just kind of get right back to business here. So one thing I think that's really important to keep in mind is keeping your sole proprietorship and that business license in good standing, right? So it might mean renewing the business license. So depending on the province that you're registered in, your sole proprietorship may be required to be renewed, and it may come to an end every so often. So for in Ontario, for example, it's every 5 years that it has to be renewed. In BC, for example, it never expires. So it's really important to just check the requirements specific to the province that you're located in, and really make sure to mark that renewal date on your calendar and to know when that's occurring, because you usually won't get a reminder to do this. And the last thing that you want is to find out that you haven't had a business for like 6 months and you kind of start doing some work and it's out of date, right? So really important to stay on top of that. And again, if you choose to change your business's name or switch ownership or anything like that, you're actually going to be required to re-register, just irrespective of the jurisdiction. But important to take a look at sort of what those provincial requirements are based on your location.
That's really important for sure. Like, even for myself, I'm a meditation teacher. So there's certain licensing that I needed to have, certain training I needed to have that I show on my website for like insurance purposes, etc. So it really is important to take a step back and say, okay, what other things do I need to have, etc., including your business license or any additional registrations that you require. Really take your time and kind of sit down before you register for your sole prop and say, what would I need to do to make sure that I'm in good legal standing for the future for myself?
Yeah.
What additional things do I need to do? Because you can't just register and walk away. There's things like your business license. There are things for insurance purposes as well you have to do. So yeah, that is important.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a really cool government resources. I think it's a federal resource that basically allows users to enter their location and then the industry that they're working in. And maybe sometimes it might be a lot to dig through, but it basically just generates like a long list of like potential licenses that you might need based on your location and industry. Maybe that's a resource I can kind of let you know about and we can provide to folks. But I find it's a good way to
Yes.
just like let me know what I might need in general if I'm in this
Yeah.
industry.
Exactly. No, that's really cool. So these were honestly all awesome and important tips. Some of them were just kind of recommended. Most of them were like mandatory and very important for people to have. So, I'm sure that there are a few other things that aren't necessarily fully required, but are nice to haves. I'd love for you to let me know. And there's one that's very popular. I think it's the first one you're going to talk about.
Yeah. So actually, this first one is interesting because it's a nice to have, but there is a point in your business where it actually becomes a need to have, and it becomes a legal requirement, and that's registering for HST. So the government of Canada requires that all businesses that generate more than $30,000 in revenue annually have to register for GST and HST. So after that point, it's a legal requirement. Before that point, it's not mandatory, but we've talked to a lot of users who do this very, 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 very early on, so they could be eligible to obtain certain tax credits and just use that to their advantage. And would really suggest, kind of as you mentioned earlier, Alicia, just working with an accountant to kind of help better understand sort of the different areas of tax that you can take advantage of with this stuff. But yeah, HST, I think magic number $30,000. Above it, you have to be registered. Below it, consider doing it early because there's some significant tax credits and benefits that come with it.
Awesome. Yes, it definitely is really important to do. And for sole prop owners to know, even if you come under $30,000, like you mentioned before, there still are some tax credits and things you could do. Depends on how much work you're willing to kind of put in terms of calling the CRA or working with your accountant and letting them kind of handle it from there. You do have to mail in certain documents as well too. So if you come in under that $30,000, it is a little bit of extra work, but it does set you up for the future and gives you that practice that you need after your business is successfully running at over $30,000 of money coming in.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing.
So what else can we think of? I mean, so typically, like, folks, after they've kind of gone through these general processes, maybe they've set up their HST. One really cool thing for Ownr users is the long list of perks that we have. So if you've registered your business with Ownr, you'll have access to some really, really cool perks that can save you a lot of money as you're getting started. So there's obviously the element of helping you with the registration and these sort of things, but there's a lot more to running a business that comes with that. So definitely check out our perks page, which we'll be sure to provide. And for things like, it might be accounting software with QuickBooks, and there's some significant discounts there. Or you might, be going door to door and spreading the word and might need some business cards, and, a Vistaprint perk would be awesome. Or you need a new phone for the business, so check out our perks with TELUS. So there's a lot of really, really good stuff in there. I think it's up to like $15,000 in perks. I challenge anyone to use them all.
That would be cool.
Very
when
impressive.
I looked at the page, I was like, this is all available to business owners that, like, I'm taking advantage of a lot of them myself.
Yeah, as you should.
That's awesome. So are there any other recommendations that you may say that are not necessarily required, but would be nice to have for somebody who registers with a sole prop?
So one more, I think that's a really big one. We kind of are going into, I think, like a slightly different territory here now with this, but is to keep an eye on the potential thought of possibly incorporating in the future. So we really mentioned, we started here by saying that sole proprietorships are probably the most common ways that people start their business. As they're kind of growing and evolving, incorporating a business tends to be one of the more common ways that people actually grow and scale their business. So this is very common that we see on Ownr, where users will start with a sole proprietorship. They'll use their same Ownr account to just kind of start a new company, get incorporated. As you're going through this, just kind of considering as your business is growing, are you taking on more liability? Are you taking on more revenue? Are you looking for more opportunities within certain contracts or obtaining certain funding opportunities? These are all really good indicators that it might be the right time to incorporate. We really encourage, obviously, chatting with, especially like an accountant on that front, to kind of get some advice on when that time might be. But really quickly here, I just want to point out, because there might even be some folks here that are watching that this question comes up. There's, I think, a a misconception almost with entrepreneurs that there's a sort of easy transition where you just click a button and your sole proprietorship turns into an incorporation. We see this question all the time. Well, that's not really the case. You are creating with a corporation, unlike a sole proprietorship where it's you and the business and it's one and the same. When you've incorporated, you're creating an entirely new legal entity. Now, this is outside of you, right? So to say that you would incorporate a sole proprietorship would almost be like incorporating a human, which would be one, the subject of a great sci-fi movie, but two, legally and technically just not possible, right? So just understanding that as you're going and kind of entering these areas where your business is growing and it might make sense to incorporate, keeping in mind that there is now a formal process to go through where kind of starting at the beginning, potentially a lot of folks will dissolve the sole proprietorship directly with the government. It's your responsibility to now, if you did register for HSD, to close that down, open it again for your incorporation. Same with the business account. We mentioned earlier, like a corporation needs to have a business account. So you're kind of responsible for getting all those pieces in place. And Ownr helps with the majority of them in terms of those pieces. And there's some things that you would do with the government, like just shutting those programs down. But I think just really important for folks to understand that what that sort of transition process looks like. And it's not just a click of a button. With Ownr, maybe it's 10 clicks of a button.
Yes, exactly. Like we really do make it easy, or at least easier than what people would experience if they have to kind of transfer and go through the full governmental way. But exactly like you said, it is not just one seamless click of a button in a sense, because you are creating a completely new legal entity with potentially the same name as your other business. So I think that is something to really consider, take your time with. Like I'm hoping to move my way up into incorporation pretty soon, just to help out with like payment structure, etc., within my business. But in doing so, that is a big overhaul. That's like paperwork, that's a bit of time, that's making phone calls. But if you have the right people in place, like your accountant, for instance, like your lawyer, then that'll make things a bit easier and seamless. And if you're using Ownr, there's also a way for you to be able to work your way through with our team. So that's pretty exciting that we make it easier. It's not hard, but it's much easier.
It's much easier. Yeah. And actually you pointed out a good thing there where one of the only things that is brought over usually is the name. So we work with Ownr users. We're like, you know what, time for a new start. That was the old me. This is the new me. I'm going with a completely new name. But there's a lot of folks that just want that continuity, right? They've built a customer base. People know them by a certain company name, so they want to keep that. And even that process, we make that very simplified as a way to acknowledge that this is your name, and you can kind of keep that as well. So that's all built within the platform.
Yeah. Awesome. Really exciting. Well, thank you so much for your time, Aziz. It was so great learning all of these things. Some of them, like I said, I'm going to be applying to my own business. Like as we were talking, I was just like, okay, I have to do that. Okay, I have to do that. I have to email my accountant, I have to figure this out. So I'm really excited to be able to apply that for myself. Is there anything else that you want to kind of leave our audience with as we were chatting through?
No, honestly, this was just super fun. I'm glad everyone could join. We'll see if there's some questions in a bit, and looking forward to answering those. But yeah, thank you for everyone for joining. I think as we kind of started here, really, really important to get these sort of main pieces ahead, because there's going to be so much fun and challenges running your business that you're going to want to focus on, and just putting this, knowing that the stuff is kind of set up initially, is just going to put you on the path to success. So yeah, really, really, really happy to be here. Thank you, Alicia. You're welcome for giving you some
I appreciate it. I owe you one. When I'm back in Toronto, I'll get you an ice cream or donut.
We'll get a coffee.
How's that? Yeah. How's that? Amazing. Well,
Sounds
I did
good.
see.
We can always do that.
Right? Exactly. I owe you. It's like everyone knows it now. It's out in the universe, so it'll come back to you, I promise. I did see one question/comment kind of come through, and I think there's room for us to give this person advice. She didn't really ask it as a question, but I think it was a really good point. So this person had said that, they have their business name actually expiring pretty soon in, I'm assuming, Ontario, if it's within the 5 years, and they actually want to change the name of their business. This could be a completely simple switch, but I'd love to kind of get some of your advice here if they're going to be moving towards that.
Yeah, so I think we mentioned a little bit earlier, like as that expiration is occurring, it's important to renew when you're going with that. But if you are changing the name, it is going through that process again and registering that name. So I think a really good way to look at it is a sole proprietorship isn't really much more than a name. Right. It's very, very simple. It allows you to kind of set up these tax programs and this stuff and kind of take advantage of those things. But the name is the whole thing, right? So just re-registering with that name, you're still going to have to do like a search and see if there's any existing businesses using that name anyway. So just kind of entering that process, and you would be like probably the most common thing. That's pretty straightforward.
That's exciting. Exactly. So really that person could just move forward with registering their new business name as this one is about to expire. And then they could just move forward with doing all of that transferring of information that we had mentioned previously. And that is like a simple way for them to just move forward with their
and I
new
think
business.
like for sure. And I think just keeping in mind too, like definitely like some continuity around like tax and like these things where that might come in useful. Cause and really encourage a conversation with an accountant on some of those things where it's just like being aware of that switch. But yeah, the name is kind of everything. You're just applying for it again.
Exactly, which is amazing. And if that person, like Minnie, I see that you've asked a few questions already too. Please feel free to reach out to our support department at support@ownr.co. I've left that information in the comments for you to be able to see. And if you have any questions about moving forward or even dissolving as well too, we have all the information available on our knowledge base, but also our support team is super helpful and they know what they're up to. So amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time, Aziz, and thank you to everyone who tuned in today or who's tuning in a little bit later on. Be sure to follow Ownr wherever you are watching this video, and please share this video with somebody who you think may need it, somebody who might be starting a business soon or already has one, is interested in registering their business. This is one of the best ways for them to do it, and I'm really excited.
Spread the love. Spread the love.
Yes,
Spread the knowledge.
exactly. Have an awesome day, everyone. Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone. See ya.